Okay, so hello to all of our ELJMC students. Today we are going to introduce assessment of learning. But before we define assessment, let us go back to the definition of learning. In your Psychology 1, that's Introduction to Human Behavior, in your Child and Adolescent Development and Facilitating Learning, we have discussed the technical definition of learning. And we say that learning is a relatively permanent change in behavior brought by experience. So that is learning. It's relatively permanent. There is change in behavior and it is brought by experience. Looking onto the definition of learning, I would like you to reflect for some minutes, for a minute or two. Is learning quantitative or qualitative? I will repeat. With the definition of learning, which is it is a relatively permanent change in behavior brought by experience, what is learning then? Is it something that is quantifiable or it is something that is descriptive because it is of quality? Reflect on it. Maybe you can pause this video first and then go to your teachers as they ask that question unto you, and then your teachers may ask your opinions about it. Okay, now after that, let us really look into the idea of learning. Is it quantitative or is it qualitative? I believe most of you would say that learning is mainly of quality, because there is change in behavior. And when we say change in behavior, it means that there will be changes in the quality of one's behavior. That it can be that before he doesn't know and now he knows. Because when you do not know something before, it could be that you are not doing the right thing or you are not doing things appropriately. But once you've learned something new and once you've learned the right way to do something, you will be able to apply it and there will be changes in the quality of your behavior. Now, what's the challenging part for teachers? All the learning experiences of your students are of quality. When you teach what is the center of the solar system, and then your student would say that it is the sun. It is descriptive in nature because before he doesn't know it, but now he knows it and he can answer it. So, your role as teacher is to convert the quality of learning experiences into something of quantity. And that is the role of assessment. What again is the role of assessment? The role of assessment is to quantify the quality of learning experiences. Okay, so you have to remember that assessment is the process of quantifying all the learning experiences which are of quality. So what's the big role again of the teacher? The big role of the teacher is to convert the quality of learning experiences into something which is measurable or quantifiable. Now the next question is that, how do we do assessment? Is assessment similar to concepts like marks, measurement, and evaluation? So let us see. Let us try to identify the differences among assessment, measurement, evaluation, and marks. Some of you might think that these terms are similar, but technically when it comes to education, assessment, measurement, evaluation, and marks are words or concepts which have differences. Tingnan natin mabuti kung ano yung pagkakaiba niya. Although we are saying that in assessment, we try to quantify the data, but technically, we do not define assessment as the quantification, as the mere quantification of data. Why? Because it is in the process of measurement, I will repeat, it is in the process of measurement where you initially try to quantify what your students have learned. into something which could answer whether they have gotten something from what you've taught or they did not learn anything. So, what's the initial process of assessment and evaluation? The initial process is measurement. That's the point of time that you are going to measure or quantify the learning experiences of your students. How do you quantify? You quantify by giving tests, exercises, activities, quizzes. May the test be authentic, meaning when we say authentic, those are the non-paper and pencil tests, or may it be the traditional one or the paper and pencil test. Now, you just have to remember that measurement has two types. The first type is what we call the objective test. Then the other one is the subjective test. What are objective tests? Objective tests are those tests which has concrete answers. I will repeat. Objective tests are tests which has concrete answers. What are examples of objective tests? Identification, filling out the blanks, true or false, multiple choice, and other most commonly known traditional or paper and pencil tests. While when it comes to subjective tests are those with which the answer differs from one person to another. Or in a layman's term, we say that when the test is subjective, it is opinion-based. There might be some of you would ask, where do we categorize essay? Essay can either be objective or non-objective, depending on the type of essay. If the essay is to explain the process of photosynthesis, it cannot be subjective, because there is just one process of photosynthesis. So that makes it objective. But if the essay would go this way, describe your experience during the EDSA Revolution 3. So therefore, that will be opinion-based and that will be subjective because your answer will be different from the answer of your classmates. So that's the two types of measurement. I will repeat. These are objective and subjective tests. If you have further questions, you may ask your teachers about it. Now, so the initial start, or the initial and the start, similar thing, of assessment and assessment and evaluation is of course measurement. So you start with quantifying the data. So what are the example? Tests, exercises, quizzes, and other things. Now, once you have started measuring, you are also starting to assess. Because assessment is now the process of collecting information about the learning experiences of your students. Collecting, gathering information. So therefore, it is not just one activity, one test, one quiz, one recitation, or one examination. When we do assessment, these are series of appraisals, series of gathering of information. So I will categorically tell you this. No? If you compare quiz 1 and quiz 2, you are doing assessment. Why? Because you have collected 2 appraisal tests and compared it. Okay? If you are going to gather information about the examinations, quizzes, recitations, all of those are collections of learning experiences, including term requirements. So what you are doing is that you are assessing. Where do we end assessment? We end assessment in giving marks. How do you do that? When you try to apply statistical treatment, like you get the percentage of the quiz, the examination, the recitation, and the term requirement, when you get or when you give all of the markings there and you compute it and you arrive to a score or mark which is 85 for instance, that's the grade of your student. That is the end of assessment. Okay? That's the end of assessment. So now, we are going to get the evaluation of this mark which is 85. What is evaluation? Evaluation now is the process of interpreting the score or interpreting the result of assessment. Since the result of the assessment is the mark or the score, which is 85, we are going to make judgment whether this 85 is superior, whether this 85 is outstanding, pass, or fail. But one factor in evaluation is that it should have a criteria or a criterion, which will be the reference in giving the verdict or giving the evaluation to the score. For example, if the mark is 85, I will again repeat that this 85 is the result of assessment. This is the average of all the collected information about the learning experiences of your student, and we call that marks. Now, this mark will be interpreted. How? If the grading criteria of the school is, for instance, 80% passing, so this score, which is this mark, which is 85, can be evaluated as passed. Where is the evaluation? It's the word passed, because that's the judgment. Okay? What are other terms that we use in evaluating? Some would say average, superior, very good. When your student have recited and you said, very good, that's a judgment. That's an evaluation. Okay? That's a description of evaluation. Some of you would say na, ma'am, before we thought that the grade itself is the evaluation. No, that's the mark. The evaluation is a descriptive interpretation of the score or the mark. So that is assessment. And that whole course, from measurement until evaluation, is called the process of assessment. Because assessment cannot stand alone. Assessment needs measurement and evaluation. But technically in education, their processes are different from each other. They have their own characteristics when it comes to educational assessment. Okay? Now, I will give you exercises. And then it's your teacher who will tell you whether or who will give the answer to these exercises. But let me remind you first that when it comes to measurement, it's a single solo appraisal or giving of tests. When you give one quiz, that's measurement. But when you pair the quiz into series of activities, collect and gather information, it's not just one activity, you are actually assessment. Assessment ends to marks. Now, when the mark is given an interpretation, a verdict, that is evaluation. So I will be giving you exercises. Okay, so now for your exercises, this will be answered by your teachers and it will be explained by your teachers. But I do not know kung ilang minuto nila ang ibibigay nila sa inyo para sagutan ito. But I want you to answer these 5 questions. You are just going to identify kung saan nagpo-fall itong 5 na ito. If this 5 falls under assessment, measurement, and evaluation. Hindi na natin isasama si marks. Just assessment, measurement, and evaluation. What are these 5? You have number 1, raw score. Is it assessment, measurement, or evaluation? Then, an excellent speech, a score is compared to 90% passing, recording of quizzes, examinations, and recitations, and a formative test. So answer the following and identify whether it is assessment, measurement, and evaluation. Thank you so much. That's all for today. Bye.